Welcome, everyone, to the January 16th meeting of the Water and Sewer Commission. John, you might make a motion?
I'll make a motion. We accept the minutes of December the 23rd.
So moved. Okay, we're going to be discussing now the engineering sewer needs analysis via Zoom. And Tony, you want to?
Well, Dave Prickett from DPC Engineering, I see is on.
Yeah,
Hi,
Dave and Justin
you?
are both here. Justin's going to be participating fully, but his childcare plans blew up this afternoon with the snow, so he'll be running incognito. You're stuck with my ugly mug. Yeah,
That's understandable. That's fine.
Dave's got you guys. You're in good hands.
Yeah, so I guess if you guys could just give us kind of a little overview of where we're at with the sewer needs analysis and any information that you might have pertaining to.
okay. I'll get going here. So yeah, just here to present kind of a high-level overview of the sewer needs project this evening. Certainly answer any questions that you might have, and I believe this will be the start of the public's involvement relative to chiming in relative to needs and wants, etc. So there's a bunch of tasks in this project. Obviously, we're going to hit a handful, 4 or 5 of those that we think are, likely most pertinent, of most interest to the commission, as well as the residents. We'll talk about the existing sewer system. Why that's important is any extensions to it would kind of have to work with your existing infrastructure. And you have some challenges relative to, interstates crossing through the middle of your town and major rivers, et cetera, pumping stations. We'll talk a little bit about that. Conceptual sewer layouts, we will talk kind of high level about how we looked at certain areas of the town where there's existing development, what the strategies for the sewer extensions might be, with the goal, not surprisingly, to try to minimize the impact on Tony's operational team relative to number of pump stations being the key consideration. All of these potential extensions to the sewer system have downstream sewer impacts. Some of your existing infrastructure is sized to handle certain extensions, but obviously the more we push in certain areas where there might only be a small 8-inch pipe, could put some needs in upgrading downstream infrastructure. And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about the needs and the wants, and I think that's an important element that comes into play. There's significant objective data that we can use to formulate where we believe, again, objectively, there's the highest need for sewer extension. But then there's the boots on the ground for the residents and property owners that have experienced significant problems or may just really want to be connected to part of the sewer system. So those will both come into play. So we'll jump right into it here. So first off, your existing sewer system, we've taken a map and we've kind of sliced it down the middle of your system. Obviously, the Mass Pike is down in this area, so we've got kind of 2 figures that illustrate what's going on. But generally speaking, to the north of the Mass Pike, everything's fed up in this one area. And right now, primarily the south part and east parts of the lake are sewered. And I know Tony's expressed to me that there are some residents who have interest in going a little further beyond those limits. So we'll talk a little bit about that this evening, and we'll show you the southern half of the existing collection system. And southern half is, generally speaking, more of the kind of the older area and parts of the town. Your sewer system, parts of it, I think it's safe to say, go back close to 100 years. Some old clay pipe, but then obviously you have some sections that are, brand new, 20, 30 years ago, PVC pipe. You've got kind of a hybrid sewer system. So you've already embraced the combination of gravity sewer and low pressure sewer with grinder pumps. That's pretty important because as we look at some of the sewer extension areas, it becomes pretty clear that you can't do a lot relative to infrastructure. You either have to have a bunch of pump stations, you have to consider low pressure sewer. So you'll see a little bit of that moving forward as well. So relative to our approach for sewer layouts, this is kind of the approach that we use. So number one, we identify the points of connection. Where are there places to the collection system that we can connect? Generally speaking, those are connections to existing gravity sewer. It can be pretty challenging to piggyback onto the end of an existing low pressure sewer, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. Then we look at topography, which is the change in grade and elevations within the town. Obviously, wastewater wants to flow downhill. Ideally, we can get a whole neighborhood flown by gravity down to a low point existing connection. Unfortunately, that's not the case in Stockbridge. There's a lot of rolling terrain, a lot of elevation to deal with. As part of that, we identify high points and low points. So these would play into where potential pump stations could be sited, et cetera. And then based on that information, we then take a crack at what a gravity sewer layout might look like. We always start with gravity. It's the preferred, it's the lowest operational cost long-term. But in some cases, if we have a neighborhood with, 20 homes and it's going to need 2 pump stations to provide 100% gravity sewer service, we obviously come back from that and say, Tony's already got a couple pump stations that only have 15 houses going through them. He's not happy about that. So we don't want to give him, 10 more. So in those circumstances where there's only 10, 15, 20, maybe even 30 homes, we look at the combination of the gravity and low pressure sewers. Talked about minimizing pump stations. I know that's super important. It's becoming harder and harder to deal with pump stations from a cost standpoint, but also getting parts and dealing with the crazy supply chain issues. So the less mechanical equipment, electrical needs we have, we're certainly trying to stay that route. And then I mentioned a little bit relative to some specifics of Stockbridge. You have some significant streams, waterways, wetlands, even the, railroad type things, interstates, major roadways that, kind of high traffic, local streets, state roads, et cetera. All those play into to our considerations. Ultimately, what it goes into is we develop, an opinion of probable cost, construction costs associated with each of these little sewer extension areas. And that usually is where it hits home. We'll look not only at the total cost for a particular area, but we'll take that cost and divide it by the potential number of connections. And then it starts to resonate with residents, whether the unit cost is within the order of what you might pay for a septic, or whether it's 10 times that or 5 times that, or, ultimately the cost has to be borne by the residents, external for any grants and low interest loans, et cetera. So,
Dave?
Yeah.
One other thing that we have to look at too is, some of the connection points to extend on roads are privately owned. I don't know what the whole town meeting thing is. I know we've talked about it a bunch of times before to get the town to own them, but we got to go through that process as well before we can.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I suspect in those areas, Buff, it likely would make sense financially for town to consider, getting an agreement or incorporating those utilities, et cetera. But the cost per foot is pretty crazy. That's a great point. We'll try to make note of where some of the private sewers are with input from you and Tony. I should have noted at the beginning, anybody has comments or questions as we go, certainly it's the commission's discretion, but I'm open to interactive questions during the process. So next slide. Without getting into some of the nitty gritty of specific individual neighborhoods, we tried to, again, break up the same map that we showed you a few slides ago into what things might look like relative to extension. So what you're seeing, and I should have mentioned before, we took all of the unsewered areas in Stockbridge, and I think there's 6 of them, and we just kind of gave them A through F. So we can kind of like look at A being, generally speaking, this area that's on the west and north side of the lake. Inside the existing collection system, you can see in the legend, it may be small for some of you, depending on what device you're using this evening. you'll see a legend for existing sewers and proposed sewers, but basically, things start here and work their way north. And then over here, things have points of connection. Generally speaking, this side of the lake, a little easier relative to infrastructure because you get gravity sewer coming down. When you get over in this area, you've got kind of a spider web of gravity and low pressure sewer, and that gets a little trickier. And we tried to just focus on areas where there's clusters of existing development. If there is a side street and there's, 1 5-acre lot at the top of the hill, and it's a half a mile to get to it, generally it doesn't make sense unless that particular resident or property owner is interested in putting up the capital for that type of project. We can come back later if anybody has any questions about specific areas. I would say that sewer layouts are an art form, similar to advice you might get from a lawyer. If you asked 5 engineers to give you their opinion of what a sewer layout might be, you'd likely get 5 different answers. None of them are wrong, generally speaking. It's just kind of the personal character, but ultimately things would evolve into the format that was best for the town. Generally speaking, length of pipe, linear footage of pipe in a certain area, number of pump stations is really the driving force with how we calculate the cost estimate or our opinion of what the cost estimate might look like, and the number of houses connected. So that's those two.
Dave, could you just go back one slide to show the whole lake?
Yep.
And then can you just, on the eastern shore, can you just highlight that in red and then show us where the sewer stops, just for the people on Mackinac Road currently? It's kind of hard to see.
Yep. I'm going to use a couple of different colors here.
Just so people can have a kind of a reference to where.
So that's all existing. That would be a point of connection. That would be a point of connection, and that would be a point of connection. And then relative to possible new sewer extensions, this little polygon here was one. Okay.
Yeah, very good. That's kind of explains it a little better so people can understand.
Yep. No, I appreciate that context. We've been down in the weeds for a little while working on this, so
That's fine.
sometimes we need that. And then, generally speaking, you have something like that kind of has 2 potential points of connection. And then on the north and west side of the lake.
Can I ask a question? Yeah, about the other side of the lake?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You want me to do the same thing on the northwest corner?
Did you have a question, Beth?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be muted, and I probably should put my video on too. It was mostly about, around the Lake Drive area, east, west, north, south. I'm not quite sure. I think it's the southern part there.
There's another kind of little area that might look something like that.
Yeah.
And then there's another little piece that, there's some kind of like little fingers of streets, if you will, that could connect, that look like they're down in that narrow section of lake where it outlets in the southwest corner.
That's that area. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just really started for like 10 minutes.
Hello, Peter.
But obviously we look at the terrain, we look at points of connection, we try to identify where things might connect. I think when I started off, I mentioned, that particular side of the lake is a little easier relative to connections to existing infrastructure downstream.
Mm-hmm.
Things, and I'm going to clear this off so it's not so messy, things kind of over in this area that connect to this area are a little trickier. And you'll see that inside those dots, you'll see green lines and you'll see kind of light blue lines. And those are a combination of both gravity and low pressure sewer. And as I alluded to before, those don't lend themselves as well to future expansions, kind of the pros and cons at the time. We weren't involved at this project, 30 years ago, but I suspect, there were thoughts relative to where to stop, where to end, how far to go. And, a line had to be drawn, and that was the best plan at the time. But to Buff's point, it's conceivable that, some of that downstream infrastructure in there, if that point of connection was made, there might have to be some upgrades to those downstream pipes to accommodate that. Does anyone have any, we figured that this would generally be where most people would be, have some interest relative to the presentation this evening. We can also come back to this figure kind of as a pop-out PDF that we can zoom in a little better to see specific areas. But if anybody, if there are no further questions right now, we'll probably just go through the last couple, 2 or 3 slides and then open it up to the group. All right, so downstream sewer needs. We have to figure out how many connections there are in each little, branch of the tree. What sort of flow from an average daily basis, peak daily basis, peak hourly, and then we have to take a look at downstream infrastructure to make sure that there's capacity. Obviously, pumping stations are the most critical, where we might have a pump station upstream going into an existing downstream pump station. We would want to make sure that we're not sending too much flow to that existing resource and then creating a hydraulic problem, identifying which pump stations or sewers might need to be upgraded downstream. And those two would be incorporated into the cost estimate as an important part. To this point in the project, most of our effort's been spent looking at the sewer extension areas. Kind of the 2 pieces that are left are looking at the downstream infrastructure and also incorporating the septic records and the wants analysis. And that leads us to sewer needs and wants. So needs, I would just say, are intended to be objective criteria, science-based, information or fact-based information. Wants would be the emotion of, boy, I don't want to deal with my failed septic or have this problem. I really want to be connected to sewer, or I'm willing to, to pay to be on sewer. Those would be the 2 categories. Relative to the objective data, these are the criteria that we often incorporate into the needs analysis. One, and generally most importantly, is what sort of septic failures and repairs have there been in the past? Are there mounted systems? That type of information generally tells us a lot of what we need to know is, are the soils really bad? Are lot sizes a problem? Is it just a matter of, residents having to spend a fortune to try to landscape their property to incorporate, a big septic system? That can also be problematic. I mentioned before proximity to wetlands and waterways, and those are generally, again, an indication that there's existing resources, sensitive resources, things that need to be protected. And then there are layers within the state GIS database that can tell us information on the types of soils and whether they're low permeability, they don't drain well, or whether they have shallow depth to groundwater. And lot size obviously is relative, available from the assessor's data through GIS. So that's kind of that's the needs. On the want side, I alluded to most of these. I'll just recap them briefly. So input from the residents, obviously cost, how much is each little kind of sub area going to cost relative to an extension, and then what does it look like as a unit cost per property? We take all of this information, and with the assistance of the town, Tony and his team will help us for each of these categories, help assign kind of a weighting, if you will, a weighting and a ranking. So we'll have categories of 0.0 to 5, 0 to 10 at the end. We'll come up with a total score of whatever, say it's 50. And each little sewer area would then be sorted and ranked based on highest priority to lowest priority. And again, that's when it absolutely becomes subjective in the town, and the residents in each area would have to make decision. The rubber meets the road at that point. Next steps. We need to get input from the town, both on how we think these layouts might work, what impacts and needs are there downstream, the evaluative criteria to confirm those, and identify a scoring approach that weights things in the most favorable manner for Stockbridge based on its own, criteria. and then we prioritize the recommendations. So that's what's left relative to meat and potatoes. I just kind of caveat and add one more thing there is we need to assimilate the data from, Board of Health records relative to where there have been failures and such, and that's a key criteria. And then ultimately, all this information will be packaged in a summary memo with recommendations, an implementation plan, if you will, what this might look like over 5, 10, 20 years, et cetera, and identify funding and finance strategies for those sub areas where there is interest, where it looks like the town might want to explore moving forward. Obviously, without some form of grant or low interest subsidy, construction costs are pretty challenging right now. No surprise probably to anybody that's sitting in the room or on the camera, but that's a high level overview. We can take any questions that the commission and staff might have or residents. I turn it back to Tony.
Yeah, I appreciate the, all this work getting done. I just want to, make a statement to the town and to the commission that, this is all preliminary. We asked them to do this, create all these sub areas. So I don't want anybody to get anxious that, we're not going to get sewered, or we might get sewered, they might get sewered, we might not get sewered. We're way too early for that yet. So, give us some time this is brand new information for all of us, and give us some time to digest it as a board in a department and with our engineer. And, moving forward, we'll keep you guys posted on what's happening through our meetings.
Right, exactly.
But I do think that these guys have done some research, and it's a sustainable thing that we are looking at for the town as a whole, and the lake community as a whole, and the town as a whole.
Right.
As an existing, sewer user or resident, I'd just add that dealing with the increases in costs without some form of increase to the number of sewer customers over time is a pretty upside down formula relative to doing business. So it's smart to take a look at what might make sense, how the sewer system might grow, and how the growth of the system might yield more sustainable, unit cost per user over longer period of time.
Yeah. And, it'll be interesting to see, Dave, as we move forward, working with you guys, as we define the areas, to see what the scoring approach is, or the scoring mechanism, how that works out, and then to see per capita, per household, what's going to really work as far as numbers.
Can you mute yourself?
He is muted.
Patrick White.
Shoo.
Is that you, Patrick?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I couldn't understand that.
Jay understood it. Is Dave still on?
Yeah.
Yes, Dave, Don Schneier, I'm just curious about the cost of pump stations, because I know that from earlier times, pump stations certainly have become almost prohibitive. They're so expensive. Do you have a basic idea of a cost of a pump station? Let's say a standard pump station, if there is one.
Yeah, and the town has some really direct, immediate experience with this. So I would say, a small kind of run-of-the-mill pump station like you might see, down on Park Street, submersible, outdoor control panel, outdoor generator, wet pit, wet well, dry well, pretty simple stuff. You're generally looking at pretty close to $1 million as a planning cost. We've kind of gone through this recently, and I don't think ours was quite there. But that's generally a good number that we use for planning phase. When I did these 25 years ago, it was like $300,000, for all the bells and whistles. It doesn't seem that long ago, but
Yeah.
Anything with a chip in it. The electrical's really the part that's kind of gotten out of control the last year and a half. I think Tony and I could probably write a book on that, unfortunately. But about $1 million. So yeah, if we have, like I said before, if we had, 15, 20 houses and we need a pump station with gravity sewer, we generally looked at, okay, if we can do low pressure sewer, that's probably going to make more sense.
For sure. For sure.
There's a break even,
Yeah. Thanks.
Good question.
Any other? Peter, John?
A couple comments or questions. Is there a schedule, hypothetical that if this is to happen, it would be 1, 5, 10 years or unknown? And the other thing is there any consideration to how this would help the health of the Stockbridge Bowl to have many more houses or buildings or facilities connected to sewer rather than not being connected, and just the overall health of the Stockbridge Bowl, how that could enhance or help that situation?
Well, I think go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just going to say, I think Tony hit the nail on the head. There is no timetable per se. I think relative to the planning phase, over the next month or two, the thought would be we would kind of work through the alternatives with the town and start to get some input. This kind of becomes a living, breathing model moving forward too, and it may get shelved in certain areas and come off the shelf at a certain time. So I don't think there's any sort of set timetable relative to growth, if you will, of new development. And I get that, totally get that. I would say, and this has always been my line over the years, is, sewer can facilitate uncontrolled growth, but a community can put measures in place to ensure that, that growth does or doesn't occur. Like the sewer system can serve existing properties. There can be, set asides for maximum flow per lot allocation. There's a lot of things that the town can do relative to how it might want to control growth or not. I don't know that I can speak relative to the quality of the lake. There's a lot of things that play out there, non-wastewater with non-point sources of fertilizer and everything else. But I think kind of qualitatively say that obviously not having semi-treated wastewater going into the ground probably has more impacts on the environment than the wastewater being treated through an advanced secondary treatment system. That's always a tough one to quantify, but there are a number of communities that have put measures in place. I can imagine Stockbridge wants to preserve, the beautiful character of the community, but there's things you can do even if you wanted to do sewer to make sure that one doesn't facilitate the other.
I think to answer your question, Jay, I mean, the last 2 sewer extensions we did in the mid-'80s in the Beechwood area, and then in the early 2000s from Mackinac Road, the Shores, the Terrace, and the Heights, I think that had kind of the sensitivity of protecting the bowl in mind as well. So I think that's always been a priority for the commission to think of that. And
because also we're concerned about the field systems, especially in the Beechwood area.
Exactly.
That was the issue when I first got on the board, was that the Beechwood area, it was a mess.
Yeah.
And that really took care of that whole issue.
I mean, obviously any water source like that or wetland area would be affected by non-sewered areas, by septic system somehow, eventually, with seepage or whatever, so.
If and when the town ever decides to move forward with a portion, neighborhood or whatever, I mean, you're generally talking at least 3 years relative to the project cycle to do design, get permitting, find money, get through construction.
Okay, that's
a long
good
time.
to know. That's good to know, yeah. Financing, for sure. Okay, any other questions?
John?
Yes.
Hey, it's Patrick. First, I just want to thank you guys. What a great presentation that was. And I just want to point out to everyone that, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like 6 of the 7 new required pump stations would be around the lake. I mean, just looking at it and based on, the cost structure that you just outlined, kind of off the top of the, kind of back of the napkins, $1 million a piece. Everyone has to understand that this is going to be a measured process to figure out what's best. But we're looking at obviously a big and it's a significant cost, to do everything, and there's going to have to be, a scientific and kind of rational basis for, how this process plays out. And I appreciate that that's the approach you seem to be taking.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other input, questions?
I guess I just want to say, hi, my name is Daniel Pincus. I'm building a house at 8 Hawthorne Road, which is on the lake and is maybe at the intersection of a couple of the those areas that you had been mapping out on your plot. So I appreciate your work. I appreciate the commission's interest in expanding the sewer to benefit. There are many, let's say there are many benefits to expanding it. So I appreciate the approach that you're taking, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about the results.
Okay.
Oh, I would just
Yes.
like to echo that as well. I really appreciate that you're having these meetings and that you're seriously considering the importance of getting all the areas sewered, not just the lake, but the areas that are in the wetlands and so on. So, but it seems like a very well thought out program and plan at this point. So I thank you. And I, of course, you guys know, but not everybody in the meeting knows that I'm the president of the Lake Drive Association. And it was one of the areas that's targeted there on the map. So I really do thank you. I thank the town and I thank the engineering firm.
Okay.
And sorry, last second, as a neighbor and, a big part of using the lake, we're very excited that this process is underway. I'm one of the directors at Mackinac, for those that don't know. And we would love nothing more than to join the town of Stockbridge and get out of the wastewater treatment business. We have a wastewater treatment plant. It is 25 to 30 years old. It is going to need its updating likely in the next 3 to 5 years. We would rather invest that money in helping the town and getting out of that business. So, anything we can do to help and support and advocate for you guys for the work that you've done to the citizens of the town, we're more than willing to jump on board and help you guys.
Okay, good.
Well, thank you.
I should have added that the house that we're building is replacing a house that was there, and everything about the existing septic system that we removed had failed. So I don't know. I mean, had we not built a house, maybe that septic system would have just kept on going. So I imagine there are many such septic systems that are out there and are grandfathered. People are just chugging them along, and they're not doing us any favors. Let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There's nothing else. Thank you, David.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Really appreciate it. Look forward
All
to
right.
working with you down the stretch on this one. Take care.
Okay, thank you
We'll
very
be in
much.
touch.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Good. The I&I Phase 4.
So the I&I Phase 4 is about 90% completed with the field work, with the exception of all the lost manholes in Beechwood. They couldn't find or access. So within the, which were quite a few, which we have to address maybe through some kind of funding source to get that back to where we can get into them.
Yeah.
But anyway, with regards to the phase 4, we should get some reports back this spring, or a report back this spring. And we'll see where that leads us for our next
Adventure.
adventure, if you will.
Okay, that's good. 90% complete. Yeah, we really probably should address those manholes up at Beechwood.
Well, yeah, and as I spoke, I don't know if I spoke to all of you guys, or maybe you were down one day, Don, that the Beechwood Association wants to kind of invest yearly in areas of road improvements, and they kind of we want to work together as a team kind of with them.
Good. Good idea.
To, know what roads they're going to do or what sections they're going to do, and try to bring those manholes up to grade and somehow not lose them again.
Yeah, for sure.
It is harder to grade around, when you're grading a gravel road, to grade around structures. And it's quicker just to gravel over for time consuming.
Yeah.
But, when we need access, it's usually the worst time of the year, or it's at night, or we can't find them. And it's
We got to find them.
Encumbrance to us.
Get them back.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah. Budget time. You have,
Yeah, I've got, our budgets are due in a couple weeks. We've got a couple things. I got 5 articles put together, special articles for town meeting floor, all out of surplus money, water surplus fund. I'm going to add a line into the operating budget to clean the intake every year, because it's about $4,600, and it's just enough money to really kind of
we talked about doing that.
absorb, put another line in, and we're going to do that annually. So they did put that, the rubber matting down out there, the rubber membrane. So they're going to come back this summer and see how it's working. So maybe we could
Every 2 years.
every other year or something, but we'll put it in the budget now.
You did that once, didn't you, Jay?
Yeah.
Didn't you and Neil go up and clean that out?
Yep.
Our intake?
Yep. And yeah, so I want to get some fire hydrants, and they're $5,000 a piece now. I want to get 5 of them, so there's $25,000 bucks.
$5,000.
They're $5,000 a piece now. Yeah.
Just to buy them.
Just to get them, and it'll take 10 months to get them. It'll take almost a year to probably see them. So we've got 2 down there, and I don't want to put them in and be left without a hydrant. Because if something gets hit, we got to be able to go out and put another one in. The geological survey from UMass, to do a survey of the reservoir, like a 1-year project. I did get a hold of one of the guys down finally last week, and he's going to call me towards the end of the month.
Is that the guy that when we talked to?
Yeah, he was one of the guys, Steve Bout, I think his name is. They're so crazy busy. He said, let me call you in like 3 weeks. And I left him a voice message and what I'm looking for and what we talked about. So that's a special article. Loading dock. The stairs on the loading dock are getting awful. So I'm getting a price on those, and new galvanized steel Housatonic welding will make us up some new stairs. Epoxy floor for the water plant. And then some engineering money to move forward on getting some shovel-ready water main replacement projects on the books.
No, we talked about at the top of Church Street down to Tuckerman's. That's one of the things.
That's on the Tuckerman Bridge. That's already funded.
Yeah.
And we have funded in the current budget right now, we have Elm, Maple, Laurel, South. That's water, sewer, and
That's already
drainage.
voted.
That's Yeah, we're just waiting for Foresight to start on it. They're so busy, they haven't even done anything on it yet,
And
so.
what about, what's this, just to interject about the Tuckerman's Bridge, what's the status on that? We haven't gone out.
They're waiting, no,
Design's all done, right?
they're waiting to hear from the state, I believe. They're still wanting, they had to do a couple more things to see if we could still use the original granite abutments. And I think that's all they're waiting on, and then they're gonna do I think the design, I think they have conceptual already. And then, cause I think the bridge has gotta come up 1.5 feet higher than it is right now. Because of floodplain stuff and all the
I
new.
think the way the bridge is designed, the flow of the water,
Yep.
I guess that's,
Yeah.
it's not right,
Yeah.
but maybe they'll accept it.
Yeah, and then, we have added on to that project 3,300 feet of water main replacement. So.
From where to where? From that intersection?
So the top of Church Street, down across the bridge, and then up to the hydrant on Dealey's Wall, right straight up the hill, and then out to the golf course maintenance shop to get rid of all that old cast.
And there was some junk in there anyway, right?
It's all 1903, I think they put that in.
I don't think it'll help us on our street, but but at least it will be.
It'll get flow there a little, it'll help.
I thought you were suspect of that intersection there.
Very. So was Charlie.
No, but flow wise, there's no reason why there are lower flows.
Well, there's a lot of 6-inch pipe. There's just, and it's just so
The front miles.
choked down. I mean, it's just awful. It's like Ice Glen Road's the same way. You got 90 pounds on the hydrant, you open it and it just shoots out and then it just dies right off. You get 150 gallons a minute if you're lucky.
Well, that's what happened with the Cardello's fire.
Yeah.
That hydrant in front of me.
Yeah, you're putting hard suction on the hydrant and leaving 15 PSI in the main so people can
Yeah.
get water. It's terrible.
Yeah. That's 6-inch right where in front of my house.
Yeah, all the way from top of Church Street, all the way to Silver City Bridge, all the way to the top of Castle Hill.
Yeah.
We've got 33,000 feet of that water main, that old 6-inch left. It's that's a lot of pipe
Yeah.
and lots of money to replace it. Tens of millions of dollars,
Yeah.
fortunately.
Yeah.
So that's where I am budget wise. And one other thing we're gonna do is, we're gonna take, once again, the logging money. I think it's gonna roll back, it's gonna come out of the tree warden's budget and it's gonna roll back into ours. Doing the whole, now that we're general fund type thing, that's one of Mike's things he wants to do, cause it's actually, a little bit of, he doesn't like the way it's being done right now, so, which is fine.
Remember, it always went into the general fund.
Yeah, and technically, it's kind of where we are now, the way we're operating, so he said it really didn't, it's $3,800.
Right.
That'll roll back in. So, and a couple other little minor adjustments we'll go over once the budgets are finalized and pretty simple stuff.
Okay. I remember that. Tony?
Yeah, I don't have any big tickets, but no big ticket spending special articles. I'd like to get some numbers together, and I haven't got them yet finalized, about doing some Beechwood manhole improvements. And, with the Park Street Pump Station kind of still happening and, other things happening, there's some line item increases, minor increases that I want to incur just because stuff is so expensive now. I've been looking back at my budget for over the 10-year outlook. And, for 7 out of the 10 years, we didn't even raise the budget at all.
No.
And we've kind of been limping by. And when things break now, for instance, a gearbox on one of our rotors on one of our ditches is $10,000 just for a gearbox. I mean, and with a $30,000 operating budget for repairs and maintenance to equipment, that goes pretty quick.
Eats that up, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Bump that up, yeah.
So, yeah, there's going to be, there's some potential cost incurred increases that I want to incur, but nothing significant. I don't have any real big.
Good.
That's one thing that Mike did. He sent us out our budget sheets, and he did roll into on the bottom of our budget sheets, there's an emergency repair and expenditure. line that he added into our budgets. And it's a percentage of our our operating. I think mine's like 25,500. So
Mine's 33, but that's not even enough.
I know, but at least it's something. You know, one good.
It's extra.
Yeah, he wanted to do that, so we at least had some kind of buffer, because things can get, you know.
That's
Well,
great.
you get down to June or May and June and
Yeah.
budget, could be slim.
Just digging down out on the old highway garage water service, which was done in one day, police detail. It was $12,000.
Now, that was the deep one, right?
Yeah, it was 9.5 feet. Yeah. So it's just like Dave Prickett was saying, it's just, the prices are just crazy.
Well, I remember when we used to talk about pump stations years ago, and it used to be $250,000.
Yeah.
We dragged our feet on this one from 16 to 24, 2016 to 24, and the cost went up $400,000.
Yeah, on Park Street.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, remember we were talking. And we're using our generator.
Maintenance. Works really well.
Really, our generator we're using instead of a new generator also on this.
Well, yeah, but that's 9 years old. But
Yeah, but still, we're not buying it.
No.
That's not part of the overall package.
Right.
Yeah.
small savings, but
Yeah.
a little bit helps.
Yeah, a little bit helps. All right, we talked about that groundwater study, so that's, Mike's talking about that.
Yep.
Master plan?
Yeah, and I was gonna ask Dave, but he's got a lot of irons in the fire. I haven't heard anything from them I know that, like I said in the last meeting, they got a new GIS guy, so
Right.
I'm
right.
hoping to see
You know,
some of that.
I'll just keep doing it.
Yeah, I'll
Putting
touch,
it in the
yeah,
agenda.
that's fine. I'll touch base with him tomorrow
Okay.
on the master plan.
All right. John, did the stewardship committee meet?
We did meet, but we didn't have a quorum, so we didn't meet.
Didn't meet, okay. So,
Your little committee there is getting a lot of bad press for not meeting.
Yeah, well, we
does.
had a falling out of, main character, and so we didn't really have any leadership, and we're looking for leadership right now.
you don't have a chairman yet? No.
I think on Thursday, we're adding to the select board agenda and we're going to reconstitute the commission from the start. I believe Michael put that on the agenda for Thursday.
Okay. All right. We'll just keep getting updates at it every month anyway.
Hopefully we'll have
Yeah.
something to report next month.
Okay, good. Mike, Tony, any,
So all the meters are read, the new tablet's working great. Now that I know how to run it pretty well. We only read every 6 months, so you kind of forget how this new stuff works, but it's working great. I brought up the commitment for you guys to approve for the water and sewer billing to go out. And the notes you all have a copy of from Christine and myself when we went over everything. We got a few meters that we got to go out and fix like we always do that seem to be working properly, and batteries are dead in the radios and typical normal stuff. I already replaced 2 since we read them. So as we went through the process with Erica, the treasurer, the commitment just needs to get voted on, and then you guys sign it, and then or Jennifer can bring her the copy, and then I'll just have ask Jen to make a copy of it or scan it, and then just email it to all of us so we have, it's like I keep them in a file. So then Erica will be good to do the billing and get all the bills out before she's on maternity leave.
remember the years ago, just every house you had to stop and
Yeah.
go down in the cellar and read the meter.
Or and if we couldn't
You're
get
not
in,
home, leave the clip on.
leave the postcard stuck in the door. Yeah,
Oh, man.
Did that for years.
we've come a long way.
So, I guess, so. Tony,
What's that?
anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, good.
Okay.
All right, so this is the commitment, and we have to vote on this. Anybody want to take a look at it, or you want to just someone make a motion? We approve the water and sewer department commitments.
I move that we
Move that
Go ahead, John.
Okay, I move that we accept the minutes, we accept the commitment as mentioned by you, and we vote on it.
Okay,
Second.
good. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. So John, want to sign this and we're good to go. The lead pipes.
Oh, yeah. Lead service line. So, I'm glad you remember that. I forgot. So, the DEP has mandated a new program, to still push forward with lead in drinking water. It's part of it's the revised lead and copper rule. We saw a sample for lead and copper every 3 years, which we sampled last year, and we were all good. We have 10 sites in town and all the schools. Actually, we did that this past summer. We just did it this past summer. So now we have to prove to the DEP that every single water service in town is not lead. So they're sending templates out. They hopefully are out soon. But every single water service in the water system that we have, I'll probably do it by street and then by house number. We have to document, okay, I'm hoping it'll be pretty easy SRF project, Church Street, and then, in 2015 and the Main Street project. And then the water plant being built, there was a lot of water services and mains replaced. We can go and just kind of put SRF project, everything was, from the water main to an old galvanized line into the house. That's all been replaced. A galvanized line into a house, which isn't new from the main to the shut off, and we don't know what the tap consists of. They're even, all the old lead pigtails are considered a lead service line. So if there are any houses, which we have plenty, that we do not know what the galvanized water service consists of out at the water main, they are going on our inventory as a lead service line. At this point in time, we don't have to go out and dig them up and verify, but it will be on the inventory that is a lead service line.
So how you're going to make inspections yourself, or you're going to send a card out to?
No, I'm through our field books. I bet I can probably get 98% of this done through our field books and what we've done ourselves as well. But we're probably going to have to make house inspections on ones that the tie cards haven't been updated from years ago, and just go in the house and see. And we replaced all the water meters, so I've been in almost every basement.
That's true.
So I remember what comes into the cellar. There's scary ones, there's good ones, there's ones we don't ever want to touch or see again. And we have there's 800 of them. So it's going to be a lot of work, and we have to have it done by October of this year.
This time of year would probably be a good.
Yeah, and that's one thing that once the billing's pretty much, well, our end of it's done, and Christine's got a couple other things she's got to do. We got budgets to get through, and then I'm going to start plugging away at this and call our DEP region, our western region, and just ask them if I can use the SRF project number and say, this was all done, and,
As a blanket.
for this. These streets were all done, like Church Street, and Shamrock, Pine, Vine, Main Street. So we've got a lot of stuff and we've done ourselves, like Laurel Lane, and we've done Castle Hill, we've done Cherry Hill. We've done a lot of work ourselves. We put in 9 miles of water main ourselves in town.
I remember you did that loop from Castle Hill to Cherry Hill.
And we did 8-inch up on Vine Street, and we did Shamrock. So there's a lot of new stuff, which is good, but there's still a lot of old stuff too. So
I think my mom and dad's house, unless they changed it.
we changed it 2 years ago.
They did?
Yep.
That was galvanized.
It was leaking in the floor where it popped up through the floor. So they
Right down
changed. Yeah.
there, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's only 1-inch copper. So, that's going to be an undertaking. It's going to take some time, and Christine's willing to help me on it and compile the data and do whatever we gotta do and get it out to the DEP.
She's a good person.
She's great. Her new position is super, super helpful. We can walk next door, and we don't have to come up and get stuck up here for an hour in different offices. It's nice.
It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
It is. It's nice.
It's a huge help.
It was a good move.
It was a great move. Yeah, I concur.
Okay.
So that one would be a good one to put on next month's meeting as well, the lead service line
Yep.
and the master plan.
You want to remember that, Jennifer? That lead
Right now.
I'm right now. Okay, nothing else? Someone wants to make a motion, we adjourn?
So moved.
All right, so moved. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Is the